Hello, happy people. I hope you are having just an absolutely magnificently awesome day today. Today, for my Serial Saturday, where I dedicate to the forgotten storytelling genre in movies like Flash Gordon, or Buck Rogers, or Tarzan, or The Spider's Web, or on TV stuff, which we're looking at now from the mid-60s, 65, Doctor Who second season. You know, I thought it would be fun for me to go back and show some of these great things that we might have forgotten about. Right, it was made for a different era, different times, different pacing, and that sort of thing. But I feel that there's value, right, going back and sort of unpacking those sorts of things. So today we're going to be doing my review of 1965's second season serial from the Doctor Who called The Chase. So just a quick flashback by Doctor Who history. I was born in 76. When Tom Baker was the fourth Doctor, I was watching his serial called The Robots of Death on my local PBS station in Southern West Virginia. And it was great stuff. I thought it was creepy. I thought it was great. I thought that it was very, very nicely done for myself. And I finished that serial with Leela and stuff. Then I started to watch them. And then I would go and come back and watch him all the way till he died in Legopolis, and then start watching the fifth Doctor's and his told series too. He was my favorite Doctor. Then I watched the Sixth Doctor's his first season too, and then when he was on his 18-month hiatus, his ratings were so good at the station that they just went back to the black and white era. So I started to watch, those sorts of things like the Unearthly Child, the Daleks, and this too. So I saw them all black and white. Today, after that, the first Doctor is my favorite Doctor. He set a lot of the great stuff for that era, and that stuff too. He's great stuff, love him lots. But because of how great the ratings were, like I just mentioned, they would always be doing when it was time for them to show. They get their funding in from the local people, because this was a publicly funded station. They would regularly show more Doctor Who stuff. They would have vote-ins. I remember one time they actually had vote for watching the Twin Dilemma, or voting for watching the Vengeance of Artemis. And the vote wasn't the number of people that voted, but how much money you spent. Luckily, we were watching Vengeance of Artemis. And then we also, I also would show that stuff regularly. That was my go-to thing, rather. My friends were probably going more to in the 80s of things like G.I. Joe and He-Man and those sorts of things. But Doctor Who is my thing growing up. I loved it lots. Alrighty, so that's my Doctor Who history real quickly. Now let's start with this. This is a 6-parter. It's the third Dalek series for the show and serial. It's a comedic sandwiched between chapters 4 cheaper budget levels, chapter 4. So the first one is we just watch the Space Museum, and the next one will be the Tom Melder. Both of those were 4 budgets and very cheap. For example, the Space Museum concept was, hey, we can just reuse our own props, right? Such stuff like that. We could, when it wouldn't require a big cast either, because they knew that this was happening. So this stars, and it's the first Doctor, William Hartnell, and then it's Vicky Maureen Bryan. She's from the future and is an orphan too. It also stars as science teacher and fighter, sometimes too surrogate. Ian Chesterton is William Russell, and as history teacher and context provider is Jacqueline Hill as Barbara Wright. Also stars as new companion Peter Purves, as playing astronaut Steven Tyler, who will technically join next one. Also a huge cast like Peter Hawkins and David Graham as Dalek voices. So it was directed again by Richard Rarton. He did the Web Planet this season. Loved it a lot. It's my second favorite Doctor Who, and my favorite one. He also did Daleks and Dalek Invasion of Earth. They wanted to reach out to him again to do this, since he was regularly over budget. That's why Verity Lambert, the producer, increased the budgets and made the previous ones and the last one was a little cheaper to get them in, and that sort of thing. And this is his last one. Richard Martin, his last director has a thing. It's also written by Daleks legend Terry Nation. And Verity Lambert was the first female and the youngest person at the time for BBC drama. All right, so here's a quick little summary of the first. This typically I like to do this, spoiler free. We'll give you the first sort of maybe the first beats of what's happening. So the Doctor Who's arch enemy, called the Daleks, have perfected a time machine that can chase him anywhere. So they are chasing him through time and space to kill them all. They move from place to place as they are fleeing. So because this is a more whimsical and comedic take on his arch enemies, it reduces, to my mind, the threat level of the Daleks. Since, as an example, people will just dodge their blasters for fun, right? And you cannot dodge a bullet, let alone an energy weapon, right? Like a Daleks' stuff. That just doesn't even make sense, But in this, they do it early on and later on too. So this is my least favorite Dalek series or serial ever. It's goodbye. It does have a nice goodbye for Ian and Barbara. It's great. I love it lots. But I just don't like the episode otherwise. And I don't like how Vicky in the first episode is turned into more of a bad physical joke comedy because it's funny, but it doesn't land well with me. And her character was never sort of this flighty, oh my gosh, I'm going to kind of character to begin with. Short she'll run from stuff, but she's more, as a future person, she's more mature than a lot of people and so forth. She was the first one to mention in the Space Museum that in the first episode this was a time-related thing rather than from the Doctor. The Doctor's like, yeah, you're right. We should talk more about that. Right, she was the one to get them saved later on in the ending. I won't tell you how. She was the one in the Web Planet who mentions how she actually has a doctorate degree as a medical doctor. Even though she's a teenager, and she had to get it by 10 because everybody had doctors by that time. And she just have a medical doctor, right? All this sort of stuff, right? So her just what her physical comedy take and what was actually happening and that sort of a thing. I just don't think it's funny, and what they did to turn out to for those reasons. All right, so it's a 2 out of 10. It only scores 2 because of the great exit of Ian and Barbara. Also, the action in the last episode is also great. Also helps to save it, dude. All right, but the action in the rest of it just isn't that great either. So there you are. So that's my fast little take on the chase, the third Daleks season serial, and the second one in the second season. Alrighty, so there you are. Have you watched this? What did you think about it? Remember, I'm not a trained critic. I don't make movies for fun or TV shows, right? I'm not a trained movie critic either. I haven't gone to film school, so I'm just a fan, right? So keep your mind in mind. And that means your opinion is just as valid as mine is, right? So whatever your thoughts are. Try to give it spoiler free too, like I did. I know it's from 65, so it's like 60 years ago, right? But yeah, we want to keep it true, right? You might want to really talk about the endings and the classic stuff, but I just don't like it. Talking about spoilers, a lot of people may not have actually have gotten a chance, or their kids may not have done it either. It might be going back to doing it. So sort of stuff. So let's keep it spoiler free for those folks. All right, and there you are. So like I mentioned before, this is the spoiler stuff heavily influential on the era. It sold a lot of seats. I mean, it brought a lot of fans into the things too on TV. Like for example, would regularly sell out movie theaters because of the ongoing serials with their cliffhangers, with those classics and that sort of a thing, right? For example, on a movie day on Saturday like today, for example, on the weekend, your entire community would go and see theaters. They just wouldn't show up, and they wouldn't show up to just one movie theater, right? They would actually show in just one movie and then go home and have a couple of trailers like today. What you would do instead is you would have a couple of films, a couple of trailers, some shorts in between them too, and then like cartoons and trailers, a little bit, not as much newsreels and that sort of a thing. And then you have an A picture, B picture, you have an intermission between two serials, one before the intermission, one at the end. So those cliffhangers were what people were dragging them back and saying, "Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? How are they going to survive?" It was the water cooler talk of the era, right? And that sort of a thing. It was what brought them together. I mean, there were lots of places like Flash Gordon that sold theaters out, and even showed in places that didn't normally show trailers. Normally show serials and that sort of a thing. And they actually show them hugely popular stuff. Right? Good stuff, love it lots. Alrighty, so those are some great examples of that sort of thing in action, too. heavily influential this other day, heavily influential then too. But again, we've just forgotten that sort of storytelling method to our chagrin. So I like going back and talking about it. Alrighty, so there you are. So if you like that stuff, or if you just like Doctor Who stuff, that's fine too. I've got tons of those older things you can go back and watch. Got tons of Doctor Who stuff, all the things from the first season and the second season up here. Next week I'll do the top level. Love it lots. Alrighty. So then on Fridays, I could do my top 10s. Yesterday, I did my top 10 independent films of all time. And then previously I did my top 10 board games. And then I've recently done my top 10 comedies, my top 10 things like I did my top 5 silent films and stuff like that recently too. So check that out too. If you like that, just watching stuff about things that you watch, you might check that email out like that too. In addition to the CRL stuff on today. And then on Monday, I do reviews of older things in either role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons or in war games like Battletech. And so I just did D3 last week. D2. Shrine of the Kuo-toa by Garrett Gygax. It's a module from 78 for the first edition. Set in Greyhawk in the Underdark. So I'll be finishing it out with D3 Roll to the Draw. So it'll be coming up too. So if you like that stuff, check it out too. On Wednesday, I do older video game reviews. I just did Stellaris from 2016 and that sort of a thing. And then for my other 3 videos a week, I do reviews of older things out there in the fantasy, science fiction, and horror genres. So if you like those older things out there for your folks and you want to get involved with that, it's great stuff. Love it lots. Hit the just watch and share with your friends. Hit the subscribe button too, the bell icon if you're feeling frisky, you notify my 7 videos a week, and then also just hit the like button too, but basically just watch it and then share it with your friends. Alrighty, and there you are. As you can tell from all these older things, the passion of this channel and myself, and then also the passion of this, what is also where the title comes from too, which is the worst thing about new books. It's a quote by a French philosopher named Jacques Joubert, who said that the worst thing about them was that they kept us from reading the old ones. This is more worship, otherwise. Alright, and so there you are. It's also more of my context strength comes from number one strength. I love learning more about things like Appendix N and Gary Gygax and reading his stuff that heavily influenced Dungeons & Dragons, that sort of stuff too. Alrighty, it's also because in our passion for the newest stuff, the new movies, the new video games, the new novels, we sometimes have forgotten how great the older stuff is. Or that it's sitting on the shoulder of giants, so read that as giants. Right. Alrighty, and there you are. I want to thank you so very, very much for taking just some time out of your day and just investing it, right? And watching my videos, because we all have so many things, right, that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions, right? So the fact that you spent this time with me, that's incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it so very, very much. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.